And then we're going in the tweets, but like, look, this is hilarious. Aaron Lehman has two tweets today. This is the first one. Tyler Oakland, MD, says Open Door only has 15 million at SVP, sub 1% of capital. Very assuring to know they'll have the other 99% available to lose flipping homes. Open Door is a joke. Chef's Kiss. Becker served as a Class A director at the San Francisco Fed, one of three finance executives representing member banks in the San Francisco Fed district. The CEO of failed Silicon Valley Bank, no longer director at the San Francisco Fed. It's hard to be a manager. It's hard to be on the Fed board when your bank goes under. Like, that's one of the perks you have when you're doing well, and when you're not, you get kicked off of boards. Now, this guy's going to land on his feet. Okay, he's a lying person, and strategically they did something unforgivable with as far as a bank that like a 4-year-old could figure out. But he will get a job. People in the elite class fail upwards. It's the exact opposite of what happens to normal people. Normal working people would be drummed out of their job for the rest of their life. They'd never be able to work again. This guy will get a raise and be hired within a week. Wall Street Silver, this is totally normal and cool, is the Silicon Valley Bank, the first of many. Total assets of failed U.S. banks by year. If you notice, there was 2000, let's say 17, 18, 19, and 2021, there were no bank failures, and now we've got one. How many other banks will fail in this cycle? It's kind of fascinating. Darth Powell writes, I thought this was really great. Lower rates not only hides failures and morons, it makes them appear to be the smartest and most successful in the room. And then somebody wrote, now that I'm following you, I'm seeing your stuff pop up more often. What are your sentiments on where rates are headed? Put it out to the world. I'm generally interested in hearing from guys like you that have finger on the pulse. He says, I don't know, or she, I don't know who it is. No one does. It's all manipulation Ponzi. I didn't think we'd get this far. And that's where I'm at too. I mean, gosh, just think about this. I would say that the bank's main function should have been to make money on the interest spread charged between what they pay out and what the Fed pays them. I would have thought that would be a really good business, or to take the deposits and use those deposits to fund construction projects or mortgage purchases or something, and earn a better rate than zero risk. It turns out that when the Fed went and raised rates, now we're in the fives. You can go to the bank and get 5% with no risk. Now all of a sudden, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to be involved in these quote unquote Ponzi schemes. Very fascinating. Now remember, we read an article about a man who was going to buy. He put in a standing order to buy hundreds of thousands of shares of stock for Silicon Valley Bank yesterday. When it went to 100, he said, "Well, this is just the deal of the century." And I wonder what he's thinking now, or if he actually pulled the trigger, because now it's in receivership. All trading has been halted. So, I mean, just a terrible, terrible situation. Let's move on. This is the housing bubble disrespecter. I didn't like this. It says single family home investors, when they get outbid by a young local family for a home in the town where their family works, lives, and goes to school. Yes, this has been a thought for quite some time, that you're really ripping up the fabric of neighborhoods when you have investors coming in and being able to buy things. You turn them around as short-term rentals and leave the people in the neighborhood, or the people that would do better in the neighborhood, out in the cold because you can outbid them. I tend to believe, I tend to understand that sentiment. This is Alexei Chernobelsky. Yes, Belsky. Hopefully my last tweet today, 4 days ago. This is SVB. Proud to be on Forbes' annual ranking of America's best banks for the 5th straight year, and to have also been named to the publication's inaugural Financial All-Stars list. This was 4 days ago. And yes, this is how quickly things can change, how quickly your fortunes can change. But explain to me again how the CEO managed to sell $3.2 million worth of stock within the past 2 weeks, and everything was totally kosher and everything was totally fine. He knew what was up. I mean, it's just ridiculous. This is a tweet exchange between two people I follow. I wanted to go over it with you because I was intrigued by it. It says, this woman writes, Tracy Reinick says something has to be done on both Medicare and Social Security. And she is, based on her Twitter profile, a value stock strategist at Zacks, manager of the Value Investor and Insider Trader Portfolios, podcast host writing about housing on Substack from Chicago. CH, or Economica, writes, raise the age anyone can claim Social Security Medicare to 110 years old, solved. And then she writes, Doomer's got a doom. Social Security isn't the problem. You can raise the salary cap. Medicare is going to take more planning, but we're in the country that went to the moon. I think we can fix it. So she's basically saying, look, a value stock investor is looking for the most beat down stocks. I mean, they should be. Then she's saying that I'm an optimist and I think things are great. Whereas, myself, I don't think things are great. I'm more on the side of Economica. He writes, math is the new doomer of our age. It's a relation of the population, he says. Again, the math is easy to solve on Social Security, but Medicare is the issue because of rising healthcare costs. If Social Security or Medicare were the only problem, but taxes as a percent of soaring federal debt have peaked for this cycle and are set to move to all-time lows. No easy solutions here. Democracy was a good way to split up the winnings, but now not so good about splitting up the losses. And she writes, there's more doom and gloom. The sky's falling, crowd is back. Wait a minute. I remember this exact conversation about 10 years ago. Data demographics are doom and gloom. No wonder we aren't solving any problems if we can't admit the inputs have reversed and our strategies should change with them. That's exactly right. That's the problem that I have with everything right now, okay? Like, rather than just say, you know what, things are shit, okay? Things aren't great. We paper over them with this false sense of optimism. Look at the guy running the bank, okay, Silicon Valley Bank. Just yesterday, everything's fine, just remain calm, okay? Your bank just went out of business, okay? The 16th largest bank in the United States just went out of business because you couldn't manage your funds, okay? Don't give me this. Do you see what I'm saying? You can say you have an option. You can say, oh, we can choose to be positive. We can choose to be negative. No, when something is screwed up, say something's screwed up. The first step in admitting you have a problem is admitting or knowing that you have a problem, or admitting that you have a problem is admitting that you have a problem. It's so obvious. It's so obvious. Adam Turmerkin, I've been writing for months that the Fed's tightening would stress the system as it always does. Bank deposits ballooned after 2020 amid massive injections of liquidity, and many banks' funds had to do something with it all, so they bought at the highs, and now they're stuck. Look. I have said since 2007, probably even earlier, I mean, the banks weren't lending. Like, they were getting money and not lending on it. It was ridiculous. It's been ridiculous. You as a small business owner go into a bank and get a loan. Good luck with that. Good luck with that. And by the way, make it so that you're not personally liable for the funds. Good luck with that. The maverick of Wall Street yesterday said everything's in fine. Guy should be in jail right now. SVB financial CEO sold $3.6 million in stock before the bank's collapse. Look, this would be what? Denial of due process? What are the charges you're going to be bringing up against him? Incompetence? That is a charge that's real. Well, I mean, it's a charge. It's a name thrown at someone. It's an accurate description of this person. But incompetence isn't illegal, I don't think. You have to prove some sort of malice. And this guy, even yesterday, was saying, oh, things are fine. So it's basically that he should, if he's smart, play totally stupid throughout this thing, and he'll never spend a day of jail in his life. Often we talk about who are the real victims of crime. It's the people that got crime committed against them. This guy here, they're going to say it's a victimless crime. They're going to say that nobody got hurt. It was just organizations and everybody's fine. It's not true. There's a massive amount of pain that people are going to have to deal with because of this. For instance, if the bank's assets has been seized, they can't pay payroll. There are people that are going to go out this week that are not going to get their payroll. And like, what do they say? Like 96% of all Silicon Valley startups were at this bank. I mean, this is a terrible situation. This is a long, long tweet. It's 14 threads. But I wanted to go over this because this is supposed to be one of the better explanations of what's going on. SVB fails 2 days after SI fails. Why now? What was the catalyst? Their deposit rates are too low, and there's an effective run on the entire low-yielding banking system. The fix is simple. Raise deposit rates to attract capital, but this hurts profits. Over the past year, banks have kept rates on checking and savings account extremely low compared to money market funds. The average yield on money market blue reached as high as 4.43 recently, while banks rated orange remained at just 0.0 or 0.48. The gap was almost 4%. There are two reasons banks have been slow to raise deposit rates. 14 years of QE to 2022 left banks over-reserved. No need to compete for deposits, more true for the large than regional banks. Outflows from low-yielding deposits to higher-yielding options were slow and predictable. The shift away from banks towards MM funds was slow at first. As late as September 2022, flows into MM funds were still sideways. By then, the Fed had raised rates by 3%. Money market is the MM. Then in November, the flow started to pick up, and in the past month, they really started to pick up. The Federal Reserve publishes weekly banking statistics on a 1-week lag. Noted that the total bank deposits started to accelerate out the beginning of December and are at a new low for the rate hike cycle. Things are moving fast. A high-frequency proxy. The orange shows ultra-short ETF flows are booming in the last month versus the blue short ETF flows. These ETFs are not seeing flows in the last few weeks. Everything heading towards the shortest part of the YC, which would be the yield curve. IOW, I don't know. The public discovered that risk-free ST short-term rates are much higher than bank rates. What's the event that prompted this discovery? Ultra-short ETF flows versus the 6-month Treasury bill yield. As short rates hit 5% around February 13th, flows in the upper ultra-short ETFs went parabolic. So what does the bank do to meet these outflows? They can sell securities. However, FDIC Chairman Martin Gruenberg profiled the banking industry last week. He highlighted the following chart showing banks' unrealized losses. The 500 basis point rise in rates and the historic total return losses we've frequently chronicled put a serious dent in the bank's investment securities. Banks have trillions to sell to meet outflows, but they're sitting with $652 billion in unrealized losses compared to just $3 billion a year ago. If the banks sell and realize losses, they have to take a capital hit. And in extreme cases like SVB, they have to raise more capital. Banks are not facing a solvency problem. They did not lose money in bad loans and falling bond prices. They're facing a liquidity profitability problems. Everyone wants their money now to move to higher yielding funds, money market funds. This is especially true of small and regional banks. Their deposit rates are too low, and there's an effective run on the entire low-yielding banking system. The fix is simple: raise deposit rates to attract capital. This stems outflows as bank deposit accounts are again competitive with other yielding options. And if they raise deposit rates enough, it could reverse the flows back into the banks. Raising deposit rates impairs banks' profitability. But the only other option that they have now is to sell securities and realize massive losses on their assets. This has the same effect on profitability as hiking deposit rates. So in the end, the problem is that the banks left deposit rates too low, too long. The fix is to raise them. Okay, that's what he says. Maybe he knows. I don't know. I just feel like obviously there should be a criminal probe. Obviously this guy, he did resign from the Fed. But, you know, these people, honestly, if they cause like a run on all the banks, my thing is these people started it and they should be punished for it. Incompetence is something you should be punished for. I just said earlier that you can't be, but, you know, there's rumors about who they hired for their risk management and why, and it's not because of their skills. There's a certain level of arrogance that big business has that says we can hire anybody to do anything. We can hire a clown to juggle and pay them a massive amount of money as an employee, and it's totally good. Now, the clown has nothing to do with anything as far as bringing in revenue, and it's only an expense, but these people feel like that's totally okay. And you have many, many clowns that have been hired that are absolutely useless towards business profitability or growth. This is my opinion. Let's move on to an